back, guys, to another auction recap. This is going to be the first auction recap that we're presenting in kind of like a PowerPoint slide format. I'm here with Matt again. Although it looks a little bit weird when I'm presenting because I can't see Matt. But you ready to cover this auction?
Yeah, let's take a look.
Tops that were signed. There's 55 unique cards, 420 of those 575 authenticated. Now, it was missing some of the big names over here, as is included this Catfish Hunter. It has 3 of the 4 autos. Unfortunately, Catfish, which you guys will see a little bit, but you do have some of those others like the Yaz, the Banks, Barra, Brock. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I pointed out to you when we were looking at it before that I assumed based on the sold price that a signed Catfish Hunter was not included. It looks like I was right on that. I mean, I think it's a fine price. I mean, I don't, you'd have to really break it up and kind of get a feel for, what's in there. There's a lot of great names in that set. I know it says near set, so I don't know what it's missing. But maybe the cards line up there, and as you'll see, I could tell pretty easily by this price that there was no Catfish in there. If that's not what you want, then the rest of these are pretty nice.
Yeah, and obviously there'd be no Mantle in there. There'd be no Maris, I would assume. There's no Roberto Clemente, which would all quickly scale it up. But no, I think about it from the price perspective. You're looking at almost $10 a card. I mean, it's less than $10 a card on all of these. I kind of wish those other 400 were authenticated. It'd be way easier to sell. Although a lot of the smaller names, I don't know why someone would forge it on those type of cards. But I'm kind of like 50-50. Like, if you're a dealer, could you sell those commons at $10 a piece at a show?
Yeah, maybe. They're going to be cheaper. I mean, a lot of this bulk is based on, honestly, a lot of the cards you see in front of you. Just a lot of that. I don't know if these ones were graded or not. That's going to be a huge part of that, is if these were the ones that were graded or not.
They weren't. They were just JSA.
Yeah. Then, I mean, if they're JSA, I mean, that's fine. I mean, at least, you have some authentication there. So, value should be a little bit higher on those. But, if they don't have the Mantle and stuff like that, a little bit harder to find the value there, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you can get those JSA pretty easily set over to a slab with CGC, I believe 1-to-1. Number 24 over here, 1948 Leaf Babe Ruth in a 3.5. This was considered a tribute card to Babe Ruth, although there's a lot of like 48 and 49 cards of Ruth right after his passing. And always want to call this out, that these 48 Leafs are actually issued in 1949. Just the hobby just will not change that 1948 label for some reason. Maybe it's because people label some of these cards rookie cards and they have too much money tied up into it. I'm not sure the case, or just everyone has called them 48 Leafs forever.
Yeah, in terms of the copy itself, this is a nice looking 3.5. Very new label, probably, handed over and graded right at the start of this auction. But very, very nice 3.5. It looks great.
It is. I mean, I think there's something going on with the surface of where his hat is and the shadow. Maybe that's the reason why I got the 3.5. It looks like. Also, I didn't address the price. This sold slightly under $6,000, $5,760. Again, in my opinion, this is such an expensive card for Ruth. There's earlier cards that you can find much cheaper that are playing day. I mean, you can get a Sinella Ruth that is from 1932. I get it's a foreign issue, and some people just want American cards of Ruth, but like, you can get a Sinella Ruth for a fraction of this price.
Yeah, I think the serve, I can see a little bit of snowing on this card. I think that's probably where part of that grade came from, is you can tell based on under his hat that there's a little bit of snow on this card.
Yep. All right, up next, we have 1966 through 69 Topps collection. There's 2,800 total cards. I put 195 cards there. I meant to say Hall of Famers on that side of things, and our total price on this lot was slightly under $6,000. So you're looking a little bit above $2 per card, which really isn't bad if you look at it from the dealer perspective. There's a lot of dealers that set up that have albums for set builders that are going for the 50s through 70s Topps and baseball sets. Now, there's a lot of really nice cards in here, and I'm sure there's also some high numbers that are pretty desirable within this lot. But if you're going to invest in this type of lot, you definitely need to crunch your numbers. this isn't something that you move overnight, and this is kind of one of those staples of a Huggins Scott auction.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that is interesting. You know, the description usually doesn't put all the cards that are there, so it wouldn't be for me. I don't like buying things I don't know what I'm getting. It is, you know, $2 and change per card, so you know, maybe you'll do well, you know, on all the other commons. You just kind of based on which numbers they are, and are they high numbers, low numbers, whatever. But you know, I'm sure they've ran those numbers and people feel comfortable, because there's a lot of cards that you just don't really know what you're getting. That's kind of what happens sometimes with these, you know, shoebox style lots.
Yeah, and sometimes you can find some grade worthy stuff. Those Eddie Matthews look great. They're kind of end career, so not worth the most, but they still kind of look sharp. You have the 68 Seaver, which is a pretty liquid card. I saw an Aaron on here as well. All right, one of the hobby's favorite cards. There's actually two of these in the auction. Eights. This is the first of the two eights, and this Jordan sold for $6,300. Also brand new cert.
Yeah, you
Nothing
know,
else to say.
higher grade. There's no that you see these all the time. I don't have any points on it.
Yep. All right, T206 Green Cy Young. This was a 5. It sold for $6,600. Out of all the Cy Young cards in the set, this is obviously the most desirable. I'm excluding the backs because there's so many different back variants out there. But always people gravitate towards the green Cy Young card.
Yeah, normally we normally rip on the old labels, but this is actually a nice 5. This is a really nice looking 5.
This is one of those I'm shocked that they didn't get a new slab on, because if you got a new slab, I would have thought this was graded yesterday.
Yeah, no, that's a really nice looking 5.
1933 Gaudy Ruth. This got a 1. This kind of looks like an old PSA 2, to be honest, with some of these 33 Gaudis that I've seen. There's 4 Gaudis of Ruth in the set. This one sold for $6,600.
Yeah, it's a nice looking one. Looks fine.
I do think that is a crease though over here in the center.
Yeah, I was guessing it was.
1953 Topps near set. So they gave us a breakdown of these. So 15% were X mint or better, 30% X, 30% VGX, 25 VG or lesser, and it is missing all your bigger names in the set. So you're not going to find your Jackie, you're not going to find your Mantle, etc. This one sold for $6,900.
Surprised it reached that price without the bigger names, to be honest. And none of the graded ones are in, you know, high end shape. I'm surprised it's reached $7,000, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still say some of those high numbers go for a bit of a premium raw. And then even here, like the Pee Wee Reese and Whitey Ford, those are still $100 to $200 cards. That filler is still $100 to $200 cards in a 6MC. The Mize, I would assume, is a little bit lower than 100.
Yeah.
Urban in a 5. I haven't bought that card, so I'm not sure where that really goes at right now. But still, you have a decent amount on that first page, throwing all those comments there. There's quite a few set builders for the 53 Topps.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a popular one.
Another Jordan, this sold for $7,200. The other one sold for $63. So really based off of eye appeal. I don't know what the normal comps.
This one's nicer than the other one. The other one was off centered. This one's centering is pretty good.
So $900 for a little bit more centered Jordan. All right, 1965 Joe Namath. Most people know him, 2-time MVP, Hall of Famer. Only championships with the Jets. They have still not won yet. And this copy in a 6.5 sold for $7,200. One of the rare instances where an oversized card is extremely popular. A lot of people hate oversized cards.
Yeah, no, it's a great looking card, man. It's definitely one of the better, you know, vintage football cards. And
we'll cover another Joe Namath a little bit later in the video. There's a variant that sold and it got a pretty big number. Another green. We have a Ty Cobb over here, which able, but this looks like rated. I think this is a good looking, a little bit of centering. But again, the most desirable Cobb of all the different. And this 3 sold for $7,800.
This is another. I mean, this is another older label. It actually looks pretty nice, man. That's a nice looking 3. Color is really good.
Do you think back in the day, 3 that this was really mad and thought it should have gotten like a 4?
Probably, man. They probably thought this was a 5.
This is undergraded, and now it's properly graded.
Yeah.
All right. We were talking about this a little bit before the video. This was an interesting one. I don't know if my screen share thing is in the way or not, but 1991 Upper Deck Basketball #1 Michael Jordan promo. There's 429 of these cards. The cheapest available in ComC is $31. And some ComC stats on this one: 74 sold within the last 4 years. The sold price on this lot was $8,100. I also looked on eBay, and there's 3 copies that sold on eBay within the last 90 days. So this card is not the most liquid card out there. I also saw a lot of graded copies under $100 as well. I'm sure you do have some 9s and 10s out of this lot, but how much time is going to be involved off of moving all of these cards? I think it was a very high price point at $8,100, because if all these get flooded into the market, that price is going to go down also.
Yeah, I probably would have wanted to pay closer to like $8 to $10 a card if they're going to sit, before I go to sell. I'd probably want to pay a little bit closer to that. But I don't know, maybe they have some wild plans of what they're going to do with this, but I probably would have wanted to pay closer to that if I'm going to sell it for $30, $25, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to slow roll this out too. You can't just put all 429 on eBay or get them all graded at once, because it's going to ruin your pop. This is a very long-term play on this type of card. Like, this is going to take you 5+ years to probably sell all these.
Yeah.
Nolan Ryan rookie. This is one of the 4 that are out there. PSA 8 sold for $8,700. It does look like they have some snowing and things like that going on in the Mets logo, which is kind of common, but it does impact the appearance of the card. And it looks like it's a little bit off-centered top to bottom as well. A little bit of a diagonal cut.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got a little bit of a diagonal cut there. You can see on the bottom. It's got just a tiny bit.
I don't know why it just stands out to me a lot on this exact copy.
Yeah.
Because you can see it right there too. It's also, I think, a little bit shifted in the slab. Maybe that's what the appearance is. Because you can see, like, right here, it's all the way to the top, and then there's a big gap.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
I think that could be it too. I don't know. Something's about it just like throwing me off on the appearance.
Yeah.
All right. 1962-65 collection. 115 plus Hall of Famers, and it says 18% of these are near mint plus condition, and the sold price was $8,700. There's obviously a lot of different tone differences in 1962s, so you might find some of those variants in here. Some of those 63s, they get really expensive in nice shape. I mean, that Richie Ashburn, when I was taking a look at it, minus the centering conditions, it looks almost pack fresh. Just looking at the bottom, and same with that Maris Sparks Yankees rally. If some of those 63s get high grades, which it's hard to say because grading standards obviously have been impacted last few years, they're way tougher to grade now. Same with the 62s. A lot of those go for quite a bit of a premium because they're pretty condition sensitive. I mean, a lot of these look really, really nice.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you think about the price. I don't know. I think it's high.
I would spend a lot more time just diving into the numbers. I can't drop the list.
115 Hall of Famers, and then everything else, 18% near mint. Cool. I don't know who decided that those are near mint or not, but somebody's willing to take a gamble. Good for them. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the lot description over here, but it'd be interesting to see if they mentioned the Hall of Famers were near mint, or if it was just 18% in general were near mint, because that's a big deciding factor. I mean, There's Hall of Famers. Obviously, there's Hall of Famers here, right? You have the Drysdale and you have the Ashburn. But what if all those Hall of Famers were in poor condition and just 18% of that lot was plus? I don't think they would do that, because that sounds pretty shady from an auction house perspective. But it's.
But I mean, these shoebox slots, like you don't know. I just don't like the fact that like you just don't know really what you're getting. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's people that like them, and I'm sure there's people that do well on them. Somebody knows what they're doing with it, but it's not for me.
1952 Willie Mays, PSA 5. Terrible centering on this one, left to right, and it looks like there's a scratch on the card. Super old label, so I think today this would be a 4, not a 5. But again, that's my opinion. This one sold for $8,700.
Yeah, I mean, other than the centering, the card looks great. It's kind of a bummer.
It does. Yeah, I mean, I just think from the scratch right there and the centering would drop it down to a 4. The corners look good. for a 5.
Yeah.
That I will say.
Yeah. I honestly don't even know if you get a 4, to be honest. Not with the scratch.
All right. Tom Brady, 2000 Contenders auto. That came out of nowhere. I don't think of Huggins Scott as a modern guy or modern marketplace, but obviously Brady has his spot in the hobby. This is kind of one of the holy grails of Brady autograph cards, and this sold under $10,000.
Yeah, I'm guessing because it got an authentic grade, didn't get a number grade or something like that. Maybe it's trimmed up, something like that. I don't know. But
that is interesting, though. I mean,
why would you not number grade it?
Yeah, that's weird.
I'm guessing that the autograph also isn't the best. It's tough to see, but it's a nice card. I mean, it's one of his best, like you said. Probably, yeah. I mean, one of his probably 4 best rookie autos.
And I think the best one in the set's numbered to 100, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
like that. I don't know what the premium is on those.
Yeah, they have the ticket. They have like the ticket one and things like that, and then the ticket has parallels and stuff like that.
A 1955 Bowman 5-cent unopened wax pack. Really, you're chasing your Mantle, your Maze, and your Aaron within the set. 1 pack sold for $9,600. I assume there's not a lot of these 1955 Bowman packs out there yet. But also, it'd be kind of interesting to see if this ends up in the hands of one of those like vintage pack openers, and they do a break on this one.
I think it's going to end up under a CT scanner, is what I think.
Yeah, CT. I mean, at that price point, $9,600. Scan it. See if you have your guy. If not,
get it out of there. Get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean that's a very expensive pack at that price point. But what's $75 to CT scan it? So what's $75 and you're dropping 96?
If you're spending $9,600, man, you might as well spend 75 just to know what you get.
Another 49 leaf Jackie Robinson. This looks like a really nice looking too. I mean, when I first saw this, I'm like, man, this has great eye appeal.
Yeah,
and this sold for 10.8.
Yeah, that's a great 2. Centering is really good for a 2, and
yeah, just a little left to right.
Yeah, it's just a little bit. I mean, it's a nice looking 2.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
back wrinkles or something like that, but in terms of eye appeal, it looks great.
This is what I would call undergraded because this is an old 4 all day. The first football card, Harry Beecher, Goodwin Champs. Classic set. Most people know it for baseball, but there's also other sports. You can find boxing in there. You can find horse racing. And there's also non-sports. You can find Colonel Cody, also known as Buffalo Bill. This one was in a 3 and sold for $11,100. I believe also Orlando Collector's Dream just consigned a few of these, 1 or 2 to REA, if I remember correctly. So those we'll be covering that once that sells. But
yeah.
What's your opinion? You obviously love vintage football cards.
I mean, this is like one of those cards where, people as they kind of get more and more into vintage football, this card starts to creep up more and more and more, and it kind of just becomes one of those items that, you seem to want. I mean, the price of them seems to always go up. I can't think of a time where these ever became a discount. But it's one of those ones like as when you get into football collecting, as you keep getting older and older with your knowledge, eventually you reach this point where, the anonymous and this are kind of the 2 that you're overly interested in, unless you have serious interest in like star player candy or stuff like that. But those 2 become the ones that are actually obtainable, and you can look at picking them up. So it's, somebody is able to add, the oldest football card.
We'll see one of the other football cards on the pre-war side in this auction too. But before then, a lot that actually showed us essentially what every card was in there. There was an 1887 to 2023 type card collection. Now, Huggins and Scott said it's an MVP only collection, but there was non-sports cards in there. I saw a Kousis Andrew Johnson. If you're not familiar with Kousis cards, they're issued out of Malta. And then had a Edison Ogden and a PSA 6 Ogden cards. 90% of them, I would say 95% are issued out of England. 5% are out of Australia, but this was just an English Ogden. A good grade in a 6, but I was kind of confused by the verbiage saying it's an MVP collection when you have non-sports, and non-sports can't be MVPs. Regardless, this one sold for $14,400. There are some really big cards in here, though. You have the Leaf Stan Musial, 49, which that sells, I want to say like $600 to $800 last time I checked. It could be different right now. Then you also have that 56 Mantle in a 1, which has a corner chopped off, but that's still another at least a $400 card. And you can see across the board, there's a 32 Caramel. You have the Eddie Collins, Willard's Chocolate. I mean, there's a lot of really nice stuff here.
Yeah, you got a 62 Mantle down there. You know, you got 53 Campy. It's nice. I mean, this is one where, you know, I know they had more photos. So with only 132 cards, you can see everything they have, which is kind of nice. This is a lot that, you know, I would definitely like a little bit more, you know, and kind of see what these break down to in terms of value. And then, of course, try to pay something, you know, that makes sense.
I wonder what the winner paid percentage-wise. What do you think, 70%? Or do you think they jumped all the way to 80 on this type of stuff?
I bet you probably 80. I doubt. I mean, I think when stuff like this sells in an auction, I think it's really hard to get 70. I just don't think that happens too much. If I had to guess, it's probably closer to 80. Maybe they priced a couple a little bit higher, but then try to get a couple cards a little bit lower, like when you balance it out. But if I had to guess, I think it's probably closer to 80.
Oh, it makes sense. Obviously very curious on that side of things. Look at that for today, but this sold for $15,600.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's nice.
I just see a lot of snowing though. Like, look at the surface on that.
Yeah, the surface isn't great. I don't know if it's a 4 today. I don't absolutely hate it. I think it's fine. I mean, there's cards, of course, that always have better eye appeal. But as long as it doesn't have ridiculously bad eye appeal, I'm fine with it.
I just think this looks like very comparable to that Jackie too.
Yeah.
Very comparable. I think actually a little bit better centering. The other Joe Namath I wanted to talk about today, this has what the hobby likes calling the butterfly variant, although I don't know why the grading companies don't label it on the slab, because people love this variant for some reason. The reason why it's called the butterfly variant, if you look at Namath's left hand, there's like a black ink spot right over there. And this 7 sold for $18,000. Now, obviously, you know a lot more about vintage football than I do. What's your opinion on this butterfly variant? Like, do you think they should label it? Do you think it's a stupid variant that people chase? Because I know there's people that want to have both copies of this Namath just because of the variant out there.
I mean, I think I honestly think it's fine. I mean, I like variants and things like that. I think the grading companies, I don't know why you wouldn't label it. I mean, why not? I mean, you know, why wouldn't you? They label different colored backs, you know, white and gray backs. They label, you know, a whole bunch of different things. I don't know why you wouldn't. I don't know if people want to pay more because there's somewhere out there is a percentage of like how many of these were made compared to the normal ones. I don't know it off the top of my head, but you know, I know it's a nice one. This grade as well for the butterfly one is really good. I don't remember what the numbers were around it, but I know it's really high. This is a pretty cool card, you know, considering the grade and the butterfly variant and things like that.
Absolutely. All right, 1977 Topps partial vending case. So there's 11 out of the 24 baseball boxes associated with it. You can chase the Andre Dawson, Dale Murphy, and Bruce Sutter rookie cards. And these vending cases, which, by the way, vending cases, I believe, they don't give you every single card in that set. So you're not guaranteed to hit a Dawson or a Murphy or a Sutter. These 11 sold for essentially $20,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a big gamble.
It's a big gamble. And it's not a set that, to me, has the rookies that are worth the gamble. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a lot of Dale Murphy and Sutter fans out there, but to me, the value of those, even if you were to get 10s on them, which isn't, you know, a guarantee, I still don't know if the value is really there to spend $1,000 on it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you could still get these signed though. So that would be kind of an interesting twist, but also the statistics behind getting a 10 on a card and then getting a 10 auto.
Yeah.
It's tough. I mean, this would have to go to a breaker or someone that just wants to preserve these boxes.
Probably the second one. I think a lot of people like to hold them and just sit, and they go up over time. They do, and so you can sit on them and keep them going.
Plus, you have the original cardboard on the outside too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
All right, one of the error cards, the Maggie error. So you can see over here it says MAGIE, where it really should be MAGEE. This is one of the big four of the T206 set. The reason why most people count only 516 cards, I believe, out of 520. Might be a little bit off on my numbers, but there's four that are very tough. This one in a 3 sold for $31,200. And this is probably the least desirable out of those 4 errors as well.
It is by far the least desirable out of those 4 cards, and quite honestly, the one that I think people should consider as a part of the set. I mean, or in terms of like the main set, just because the Wagner, okay, fine, not obtainable. Plank, fine, not obtainable. This card is obtainable. It comes up, and I don't know. It's not easy to buy, but it's something that you can buy. It's by far the one that to me annoys me the most when people say, I have the whole set, but I don't have the big 4. I just think it should be a part of the normal run, because it is easily more obtainable than those other 2.
Yeah, it's still cheaper than a 52 Mansell in a 1.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of pre-war football, the one that you forgot to bring up was the Bronco Nagurski, but I knew we were going to talk about it anyways. This one in a 4 sold for $35,000. Which
the price is low in my opinion. I was looking at
it is because I just saw a one that was pretty beat up selling a Facebook group today or yesterday. I think it was $10,000.
A really nice one sold for $17,000. And then you've got a couple other. You got a 3 in SGC that sold for $28,000. I don't know. I mean, it's not that great. A 6 sold for $93,000. So it's not, I think it could have gone for a little bit more. It's an older label, so maybe people took that into account. If this had gone for like 40 or like 42, I'd be like, yeah, that makes more sense. So, if you got this for 34, you probably feel pretty good about it. And if you bought the 1 for 16,000, maybe you don't feel as great about it. But I mean, it's a nice card of a card that literally never seems to go down. This card
always goes up.
Since I learned about it in 2012 or 10 or whatever, has literally never lost value over time. If you didn't sell like an idiot or something like that, it's one of the big 5 football cards out there. So it's up there.
Yeah, and I still remember the PWCC top 100, and there's people that didn't vote for the top 100 most iconic cards. Idiots. Anyone that didn't vote for this card in the top 100 should have their ballots revoked.
Yeah, that is honestly pretty wild. I don't remember what other football cards they put, but
well, this one didn't even make the top 100. They had to make this as an honorable mention because their voter base, which, by the way, how do you get a voter base that does not put Nagurski in the top 100 most iconic cards of all time? I mean, that as soon as that didn't make the top 100, you should have just stopped that contest and said, we need to have more vintage representation. Because
you went to the national, you saw the voter base. You think the voter base was putting in this? Come on, you saw those people. Yeah. I am curious. I actually do want to go look at that list and see what the other football ones were that they put ahead of it.
Look that up while I load up number 1 because I'm sure it's still out there.
Which one was it?
The PWCC top 100 most iconic cards or something like that. Which they didn't even have any non-sports in there, minus I think some like TCG stuff, if I remember correctly. Again, huge mistake. Like, how do you not have any vintage non-sports voters on there? Regardless, we'll jump in number 1 while Matt looks up this PWCC list. And this was a card I didn't know existed until this auction. So this is 1980 Charlotte O's Cal Ripken Jr. And it says it's a police orange border card. So I just grabbed the description essentially from the auction house. So it said the orange border card set was issued by the Charlotte police force and then distributed randomly at time to like younger people while the police officers were on patrol or at their like community gatherings and stuff like this. This 6.5 is the highest graded that ever sold publicly. There might have been some private sales. There's also some that are apparently graded higher that just have never hit the auctions. And this one sold for $69,000. I'm kind of shocked that I didn't know about this Ripken card, especially at this price point. But man, Ripken has some big super fans ponying up some cash, because typically you don't see a lot of the minor league cards fetch these type of numbers. Now, a lot of the minor league cards are obviously way easier to find, especially if this was only distributed by police officers. And, you know, they probably didn't carry around this card in a top loader when they're handing it out. They probably just handed it out. So you're not going to find these in high grade. So the fact this is a 6.5 and, you know, it kind of looks a little nicer than a 6.5. Maybe the centering took it down. It explains why this sold for so much.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that they gave these out was, if I read, they gave them out when they used to do like events at elementary schools, like when you have like police officers come in and like talk about, you know, safety or whatever. I did think that they came in packs when they did that, so that might help with the grades a little bit as well. Of course, they gave them to elementary school kids, so I can't imagine what those cards went through. But that was one of the other ways that I know they gave them out when they did events like that. And, you know, it's just an insanely rare card. I mean, this price doesn't surprise me at all. This is like, for some people, this is their Honest Wagner, for, you know, for better or for worse. This is one of their like favorite cards. And Cal Ripken's an incredible
he's a legend
player.
Ripken will be still talked about 50 years from now, because no one's going to beat his record.
People love, especially where I live, people love Cal Ripken. So this doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. So did you find your top 100 list?
I did. And I got to card number 57. I honestly can't look at this thing anymore. Here, the first football card I saw that made the list above Nagurski is a 1998 Contenders Peyton Manning. Okay.
Now, that card probably should be on the list, but I don't think it should be above the Nagurski.
The Beam Team, Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, National Treasures, Giannis. I mean, 1989 Hoops, David Robinson.
What?
I mean, dude, at least they put, dude, where was that? Where would I just see that?
Did the Beecher make the list?
Who?
Did, or Beecher, the first football guy?
Dude, hell no. No, oh my God, no. They do have, at number 69, they have the Topps Dan Marino. In the two slots above that, they have the 1914 Cracker Jack Cobb and the 1914 Baltimore News Babe Ruth.
It was such a. I mean,
I actually want to see what the top of the list looks like.
And I'd assume there's no Lincolns or Washingtons, because no one cares about non-sports.
They had Magic the Gathering. That beat your non-sports stuff. You lost to Magic the Gathering.
Man, I love that. Lone Jack Edison. Sorry, we're not going to throw that in there. Magic the Gathering.
The top five. Ugh. Oh, Jesus. Top five isn't awful, I guess. The Mantle, 86 Fleer Jordan, T206 Wagner, 33 Babe Ruth. I don't know if I'd put that as number 4. And then Exquisite LeBron James.
How do you put the Gaudy Ruth above the 1916 M101? That's dumb. That tells you someone just joined the hobby the last few years.
They put the Metal Universe Michael Jordan above the 61 Fleer Wilt Chamberlain.
Ooh.
They put the Chrome Kobe Bryant above the 69 Lou Alcindor.
What a flow list.
That's kind of really interesting. Yeah.
Let's jump into our honorable mentions before we have a bunch of comments on there. So first off, we have a 1888 Pud Galvin. There's only 4 of these playing cards that are graded, and this was a GAI slab. So the reason why I wanted to put this on here for a few reasons. Number one, you typically find playing cards in higher grades. Because of the rounded corners, they don't absorb as much damage as something that has straight corners. So typically when you see some of the stuff in like the early 1910s, some of the playing cards, there's a few different sets out there. You'll find them in 8s, 9s, and 10s, and people go crazy over them. But just know, like, there's a lot of them in nice shape. Now, this is 1888, a little bit different. This is much tougher to find, being only 4. And the GAI side of things, there's 2 types of GAI slabs. Stay away from the non-metallic slabs. The metallic ones, GAI, back in the day, were a reputable company. They had PSA graders, and I believe it was Mike Baker, the guy that does all the stickers now. He was in charge of that company. Then he sold it, and then they got really, really junky, like HGA status. So only focus on the silver GAI slabs. Don't buy anything else, because the other stuff, a lot of alterations and things like that. But this one sold for $4,400.
I didn't know this card was this rare, to be honest.
I didn't either.
Cool. I didn't know it was this rare.
Yeah, I mean, I would have expected with playing cards there'd be like at least 40 or 50 of these, but
yeah,
I was shocked, and another kind of reason why I threw that in there. Yeah. All right, we had the 65s, so I had to throw the Catfish Hunter in here. Yankees and A's Hall of Fame. This one alone sold for $4,000. He was super reluctant to sign this card. I also want to say, like, we did cover a Catfish Hunter autograph. I don't know if it was Huggins and Scott or if it was somewhere else, but like this card seems super familiar to me.
We did cover Catfish before, not this signed one. He signed a ton when he was alive, and I can't remember the reason why he didn't sign this card. There's a reason for it. There's some legal, not some dispute or like some issue he had where he did not sign this card. Like, this was not a thing that he did. That's why when I saw the price of the other lot, I knew that this wasn't going to be in there.
Could you imagine that was in there, though?
Well, then that person would be going fucking crazy. Because this is a big boy card. This is not something that's easy to find. I honestly wish I had been bidding in this auction, because I would not have minded. This price is pretty good too.
It's a good looking card.
Yeah, like, it's a nice card. I'm surprised they didn't number grade this. Look at the card.
I know. They also didn't label the autograph as something. Like, I don't think the autograph gets a 10. I think it more of a 9 or an 8, but still.
Yeah, I would have graded the card. The card looks nice.
1954 Bowman, Ted Williams. The story goes that these were pulled from distribution because Ted Williams signed to the Topps company in 1954. He's card number 1 and card number 250. Now, although these were pulled from production, you can still find these cards quite often. So I don't know how rare the Ted Williams card really is, but that's kind of the fun part about the vintage hobby. Everyone always thinks this is a super tough card. It's really not. But not a bad looking 5. This one sold for slightly under $3,000.
Yeah, it is a nice looking 5. That's a pretty good set. Centering's not bad. Corners look good. Not bad. Pretty good looking card.
Speaking of error cards, this is one that always gets labeled. First time I was exposed to this error card, I want to say it was like 3 years ago at the National. One of the auction houses had a few copies of this with different variants of how much of the A was printed at the very end. And I believe the less amount of A that you see, the more expensive the card is. So this one sold for $27.60 in a 4.5.
Yeah, I've seen this. I think we might have covered one of these before.
If we did, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I've seen them around.
Another 33 Gaudi Ruth. This was an interesting one because this card, not only is it double printed, but this one has the whole Gaudi advertisement chopped off at the bottom. And it wasn't super rare to see. There's an autograph collector that would chop off the bottoms and then have the players sign it, which really impacted the values now today. But back then, that's kind of how I collected. And you see the chopped off bottoms a lot on 1800s tobacco cards. Not as much on the 33 Gaudis minus that one autograph collector. So when I saw this one, I was like, I have to throw this in here, especially since it sold for $2,200. What would you rather have? The completely trashed and beater one, or do you rather have the bottom chopped off in like a pretty good looking one? Obviously, it looks like there's some creases here to the top right, but I'm not sure in general.
It's an interesting question. I think I'd have the beat up one.
Yeah.
I like my cards chopped. I think it looks kind of stupid. I don't even buy, I don't even buy the bread labels if they cut the tag labels.
I know you don't, but sometimes I think about it. I'm like, there's one card there's some stuff I have to buy that are chopped. Like I just got my last Lone Jack Inventor. Unfortunately, the bottom is chopped. You know, I don't know if I'm going to find that card for another 5 years. So in that case,
to me, it's just a preference. It doesn't mean that you don't have. I mean, my star player Cobb, the corners or the two corners are chopped. I don't have another chance to buy that card under 50 grand. So like, I'm not.
You have to. Sometimes you have to do that. Like you can find a 33 Gaudi all the time.
Yeah.
All right, a vintage basketball one for you. 1962-63 Cons Jerry West. This was graded A6. People know him as kind of like the face of the NBA logo. Cons are a very tough regional issue. I don't know how tough the 62 is compared to some of the other cons that Jerry West has. I believe his first is a 1960. Then he has a 61. Then you have the 62-63. This one sold for $2,000.
Super tough in higher grades. This is actually a really nice grade for this. Of course, they sat in the hot dog pack, and so they were covered in hot dog. So much harder to get in higher grades. Honestly, most of the uber high grade ones you see probably were just pulled from the production line. They probably never made it into a pack themselves, because if you've ever seen the back of those, or honestly, like just looked at them close, like they're pretty gross. Any of the higher grade ones, they're much harder to get. Some of them probably weren't even in the packs to begin with.
Which is probably the same thing that happened with those two Stallmeyer 9s that were at the National.
Yeah, I think the one dude said he thinks that one was never put into a pack.
Yeah, they were just pulled from production, which amazes me that there's only 1 9 that was pulled from production on that side of things. Obviously they're very, very tough to find, but regardless, this was a good segue because I wanted to talk about the Stallmeyers anyways. But another really tough regional food issue. This is the Roy Campanella on the side of things, and personally, I like this a lot for early campy cards. I love the imagery on it. I love that it's a regional issue. It's not an easy card to find. You can't just walk into a card show and find this one.
Yeah.
And this is about equivalent to finding a campy rookie in a 7-ish. And this one sold for $2,100.
Yeah, it's a great card. You can even see the hot dog marks on the top. If you look up, you can see where it's brown and where it's not. The cons on the back look exactly the same, where you can see where the hot dogs were.
I just love the imagery. You have CBS television here. You have the empty stands in the background, throwing off the catcher mask.
Yeah, it's a great card.
I don't know what it's about, this 53 Stallmeyers campy, but it's one of my favorite cards out there.
It's oversized. I love the oversized stuff. This is a great card.
All right, 1952 Topps Gil Hodges autograph. The auction house mentioned there's only 9 examples of this autograph with the specific back, which is a black back. Now, there's 2 different back colors for Gil Hodges. I didn't mention the pop of the other ones. I don't know if people are going for the 52 signed set, if they're trying to get both back colors or just one. Let me know if you are going for the 52 set. I know there's a few people that kind of watch the videos that are going after that right now, but this one sold for $1,800.
Yeah, he's a rare auto just because he died young, died in 72. So anybody that died in the 70s or 80s, their stuff is just going to be very tough. I didn't know how low the pop was until you showed that. This is actually, I think, pretty good price considering how rare it is. And it's 52. I think if the auto was a little nicer, it would have gone for a little bit more. But with the pops that low and how many people collect this set and collect it signed, what else can you do?
Plus Dodgers legend, Hall of Fame. And the card has decent centering and eye appeal on it. I know there's like some technical issues right here and right over there, but I mean, this is something that you bring. This is a card you bring to the National. You could probably sell for $3,000.
Yeah.
All right. Vintage football for you. Dutch Clark, card number 1 in the Chickle set in a 4. First player to have his jersey retired by the Detroit Lions, and both in the college and pro football Hall of Fame. This one sold under $2,000.
Yeah, this is a tough card. It's card number 1. Fun fact about him: he missed the 1937 NFL championship game because he had to coach college basketball. I think it was college. It was either high school or college. He had made a prior commitment that he had to coach a game, so he actually missed the 1937 NFL championship game. That would, of course, not fly today. But back then it was a little bit different, and football was very, very professional. Football is very different back then. So it had a little bit of a different reputation. But this is a harder card, in any grade outside of a 1, just due to it being card number 1.
I'm kind of surprised at how big of a gap it is right now between Dutch Clark card number 1 and then also the Bronco Nagurski in the set. I mean, you're looking at $2,000 here compared to 34,000, and they're
That's
both
the
pretty
Broncos
big cards.
demand, dude. The Broncos a different
Oh,
card.
I know. I'm saying it has huge demand, but it seems like it's such a huge gap between the two.
There's a huge gap between the Bronco and pretty much every card in this set. I mean, even this card I think is a little underrated because even like Bull Tosi outsells this card. Now the Bull Tosi is a short print, but who the fuck cares about Bull Tosi? Dutch Clark has people that actually are interested in him, but that Bronco is that's a different beast, man. That's a different level of card.
100%. I just thought it was a good comparison since both were 4s. I wonder if it was from the same set that got broken up.
I am surprised that this card is that much cheaper than, say, Newt Rockne. Newt Rockne's way more expensive than this.
Yeah, I want to say his 4 is like about $2,000 somewhere.
Yeah, $2,500.
All right, last card. I actually own a copy of this, but mine was labeled as authentic, possibly trimmed, which is ironic because this is a hand cut card. So how can you label it as trimmed if it's a hand cut card? Topic for another day. Regardless, Sadara O has so many rookie cards, and it's really hard to classify how difficult these cards are. Now, I talked to an expert on Japanese cards because I am not an expert by any means. When I first got the card, because I was kind of curious, and he told me it was a medium difficulty rookie of his. The reason why I wanted this card is it reminded me a lot of like a T206 Cobb and a red back. And I was like, all right, well, I want to get at least one O rookie card. And this was my copy that I picked up at a show. So this one sold for $11.70, which I think is a pretty good comp for mine because I think mine's also in a 2-ish grade if it didn't have that authentic trimmed label.
Yeah.
So that's it for the auction recap. Hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And I do want to give a shout out to the following channel members: Paul Stanford, Giles, Alaska Picker, and Aaron Herbert. Make sure also to give Matt a follow on Instagram if you want to check out some cool vintage football cards.